For this tutorial, I want to demonstrate the method for being able to generate or create a lampshade that looks like it has been illuminated from the inside. So in my scene here, you can see the lampshade seems to have a nice glow in it, as well as some nice patterns of light associated with the light bulb inside. This is the effect that I want to try to demonstrate for you. So I'll start with a new scene. I've got a wall and a parquet floor already made and a lampstand. So in order to create the lampshade, I'm going to use a cone. Don't need to have any caps on it. I'm going to go with 18 segments rotation and 3 segments, 4 segments high. Should work. Top radius, need to open that up. In the opening there, I will increase the bottom radius a bit more. Based on your own reference, make it editable. Name it shade. And I want to get a curvature to it, and so I'm going to child a bulge deformer to it. Fit the parent. Increase the strength in the minus direction to generate a little flare. And then current state to object. Hide that one. This is one that we want to use. Need to add some thickness to it. Don't need to, but I will add some thickness with cloth surface. No subdivisions. Little thickness there just in case you can see the underside of it. Current state to object on that too. Hide it. Drag the shade out of the folder, delete the folder. Now I've got the shade. I can move that over the into position over the lampstand. Position that wherever I want it. Doesn't really matter since you're not going to be seeing the top of the lampstand anyway. And if I do interactive render, I don't have any effective light here coming through the shade. So one thing I need to do is to create a omni light. I'll move also into the center of the shade. And take the lampstand move it down lower so it doesn't get in the way of the light. So this is the bulb. Go back to my perspective view here, and of course got some light on the inside but nothing coming through the lamp's shade. I'm going to increase my resolution in the interactive render. I need to create a material for the lampshade. So this will be shade material. Apply it to the shade. Still don't have any light coming through. And get rid of that. Get rid of that. Okay, so now what we need to do in order to get the appearance of light or translucency on this lampshade is to go to the material, we'll double click, go to basic, and create a luminance channel. And of course the whole shade will turn bright white, which is not what we want, of course. So we'll go to the luminance channel, go to texture, channel, open that up, go to effects, and drop in backlight. Now, as soon as you drop in the backlight, you can see the effect here of luminosity or translucency in the shade. Now we can make some adjustments to that, so we'll go to our thumbnail, open up its properties. Got illumination, and we've got, illumination and color. So if we want it to be less bright, we can decrease the illumination percentage, and then we can balance that against our intensity for our light, which we can put up higher if we want. It's going to brighten up the scene. And so I don't want that light really illuminating the scene here, because I'm going to need to have ultimately 3 different lights that I'm going to use in order to create this kind of effect right here. This has got 3 different lights associated with a lampshade. So go back to our scene here. Now I don't want the light bulb to be illuminating anything except the shade. So I'm going to go to its project parameter. I'm going to include only the shade. Okay, now of course I lose everything else, so I need to put another light in here as a fill light. So we'll use Omni light. And I don't want it to be quite that bright, since I want to exclude the shade from the Omni light, because I want the effect only to be generated by the backlight shader. So I'm going to go to the fill light here, general. I'll reduce its intensity just to get a little dimmer interior, similar to that. Now I want some color here. I don't just want this pale gray. For the shade, I'm going to go to color channel, give it a light tan type of color. You'll see that it shows up here on the inside, but not really on the outside. So if I need to go back to my luminance channel, to my backlight, in the backlight I can add some color to the backlight. So we'll add a similar kind of color here. Now I can get a coloration there, which dims everything. Maybe I want to brighten that up a little bit. Maybe increase my illumination to 60% on the backlight. So now I have the effect of a shade that has got a translucency to it and shows a glowing light through it. Now if I take that bulb, move it up and down to change where the brightest translucency is, so maybe down toward the bottom here. And if I want it to be even stronger than that, I can go up to say 180%. Brightens it up. I can also go back to my backlight and change the illumination there. Go brighter here if I wanted to. Maybe that's a little bit too much. So let's put it down 75% maybe. 65. Okay, looks pretty good. But one of the things that I like in a scene like this, as we go back and look at my room, we got these patterns on the wall that are rather unique and not just a generalized illumination like you get from a typical cinema light. So in order to be able to do that, get that effect, we have to use a different kind of light. So I'm going to go back to my scene here. The kind of light that we're going to use here is called an IES light. The kind of light that I want to use generates certain patterns on the walls and floor that is typical of a manufactured light. In order to use that, you can go to the light menu, and there is an IES menu here, but when you drop that in, it's going to ask you to load up some parameters for that light, which we don't have any right now, but Cinema does include a lot of IES parameters in its content browser. So what we have to do to use it is just drop a regular light in. We'll rename it IES so we know that's what it is. And then under General tab, we'll change the type from Omni to IES. Now, in order to generate, we're still not seeing anything here. So in order to generate the light patterns that we are after, go to Photometric, and we've got photometric intensity, photometric data, and so forth, and file name. So we need to drop a file that contains the photometric data into this slot. We'll go to the content browser, presets, visualize, presets again, and IES lights in this folder here. And we got lots and lots of lights in here, and the only way to discover what works for you is to actually experiment and see what is your best choices. So if you open up this folder here, you'll see that there are 3 more folders, and those are filled full of thumbnails that show you the pattern of the light if you use that particular data. So just through experimentation, I found that Siteco has the design that I want, and they've got a folder here called Floor Standing Uplights. Open that up. Go to Futural 5MS, open that up, and again, tons of light patterns in here, data. And again, the only way that you can tell which one has the results that you want is by experimentation, just dropping and dragging these into the file name slot. So through experimentation, I found that the one that I like best so far is called 5MS42677. So 5MS4267, this one here. So I'm going to drag that into my slot, and I'll make sure that my light is back here where I can actually see it on the wall. And I'm going to place it behind the shade rather than inside the shade. Could put it inside the shade, but then that kind of interferes with the light that I've got in there already. So I'm going to fudge this and put it outside the shade so that the light shines on the wall. Now notice that it's got this white line that comes out from the light in the direction of the blue axis. So we need to rotate that so it faces downward. You can position it however you like. Then we need to go back to our objects, IES light parameters. You can see what the parameters associated with this particular light. Well, all of them have photometric intensity, and then the intensity, candela units, photometric data, and then the file for the data. Now, I usually click on photometric size, seems to give me a little bit better results. Then the intensity, each light will come in with a different intensity, and you'll have to adjust that to get your own results for your particular scene. Now I chose this one because it has light that comes out both the top and the bottom, making it look like the light is inside here being funneled by the lampshade. However, I don't want that light affecting my lampshade, so I'm going to go to the IES light, go to Project. I'm going to exclude the shade. So I'm going to take my shade and drop it into the exclude box. So now it's the light of the shade is being generated just by the backlighting shader and the light inside of it. Now, in my opinion, this is too bright for this to look like that light is generating it for this scene. So what I'm going to do here is going to increase the intensity because I want this pattern down below. And position my light so that the pattern begins to show up on that wall, and maybe rotate it so that this top pattern is farther away from the wall, and the other lower pattern shows up on the wall a little bit more clearly. And then of course you can move it, position it to get the kind of look that you want. And what we're after is these patterns down here in particular that we want to emphasize. But again, too bright, so I'm going to go to the General tab and then decrease its intensity. So it's not so bright, it looks a little bit more like perhaps could be generated by that lamp. Go back to the photometric, and I want more pattern down here. So I'm going to pump up the intensity way past what the slider will give me. So I'll try 10,000 units. Doesn't really make a difference. 20,000. That's too bright, so back that off to 18,000. Still pretty bright there, so go back to General and drop that down here even more, so I can get the reasonable illumination there and still some pattern down below. Okay, move it further away from the wall, gives a little bit better pattern. Put it back up to 20,000. And I don't want it to have such white light, so I will go to General, give it a little color. So it looks like it's a light bulb type light. At the same time, I'm going to go to my bulb. I'm going to tell it to use a Kelvin temperature, color temperature, so I'm going to click that on. 6500 is default. I'll make that as you go lower and lower with those, you get a variety of colors. So if you go to 1000, you get a red color. Go to 6000, it's more whiter color. So I'm going to experiment with 5500. Give me a bit of more of a yellowish glow there. And then it's just a matter of tweaking all the settings to get everything looking the way that you want. You can move that bulb light up and down to change the way it affects the light on the shade. Kind of like that, kind of like that. And this isn't truly realistic because this shadow should be clear up here, but I think it's good enough for the effect that we're after. If we look again back at my image here, the effect works pretty well there by just jiggering it around until everything works the way that you want it to. So that is the way that you would generate a lampshade that looks like it has translucency, and then a IES light that will give you a particular kind of pattern. Looks like a more realistic light bulb than your general light that comes from cinema's computer lights.